So we're going to talk about AI ops. No, just kidding. So we're going to kind of shift to the wholesale topic. Jeff, welcome. Firstly, thank you so much for being a partner of our event here. You know, Verizon's been involved with this event. The predecessor event in 2014, Gen 14, Verizon with your predecessor Eric, he hosted the Verizon Partner Conference here with us. Maybe some of you were there, but it's been a great journey. So yeah, shifting to the wholesale topic. You must have a very interesting job right now with AI and all of the impact on telecom with AI and the impact on the wholesale side of things, your portfolio. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what Verizon is doing to meet the demands and to prosper.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. Excited to be here. Good to catch up with everybody last night and again this morning. Wow, I've learned a lot so far. Listening to all the speakers, taking us through all the market opportunity that's in front of us. It's really amazing when you see the T's on all the slides there. When we think about $15 and $17 trillion worth of opportunity in front of us. You know, I date back to about 30 years ago when we were exploding in the legacy, the DS1s, and kind of the linear way of doing scale. But, you know, we're just in a completely different space now. So excited to see where the industry has gone these last 30 years. But these last 5 years, we've really started to see how do you get this exponential growth in an area that was probably doomed to be in a negative CAGR for the next 5 to 10 years. So it's really a renewed area in the wholesale space right now. When I see the trillions of dollars that are on the slides, most of that is really originated with many of the hyperscalers. We understand that's really the first order of demand that's out there. But you can't get to the trillions of investment without the people in this room also putting billions on the table to make sure we have interconnected networks. So I've been very happy to see some of the growth in our area over the last couple of years, and we've had to adopt our product portfolio. Now, I have the wholesale side. Also, we have some peers of mine in Verizon Business, obviously Debica, the CTO of our organization, but we also have retail, direct, enterprise, public sector, and the small and medium business space. All the areas are chasing after what we're calling the Verizon AI Connect strategy portfolio. So this is a collection of products and assets that we've had and we've invested in over time. And we put them into different categories we call plays. So the first play that's out there, we announced a partnership with Vultr last year where we're actually doing GPU as a service, where we're doing power, space, and cooling in some of our central offices. So we have a portfolio of central offices across the United States right now. Some of them are equipped with enough power and space where we could actually put GPU racks into those buildings today. We've also identified a collection of other buildings where we can modify them slightly, get power to them pretty quickly, and then also expand some of that. So when I saw some of the trends from Ethan at Lumen talking through how do we ultimately get the training models at the core and then push those out to the edge, we already pre-positioned with some of the assets in there to be pretty successful. So that's our first play. Our second play, we just announced last week a partnership with AWS, where we're going to be doing long-haul connectivity between data centers for Amazon. So very excited about this new area of investment for us. We traditionally did not play in this space. That's not our core strength, but we now understand the opportunity, and where we have assets, we're going to make opportunistic investments in the future to make sure we are playing in this AI-connected ecosystem. Our third play is really around wave connectivity. So back in the days of 10G and then selectively asking for 100 gigs, we are now seeing our whole portfolio and all the demand in 100 gigs and also 400 gigs. So a lot of 400 gig connectivity, data center to data center, selective edge data centers, private data centers, we're seeing some of that as well. But we're seeing a lot of that in the wholesale space and a lot of that in the retail direct. Now the hyperscalers are really the first order impact and the first order of demand, but then we also see a lot of OTT players in this space as well. So a lot of demand coming from OTT and then partnering with multiple wholesale players to get carrier diversity so they really have a protected solution and a mesh solution that ultimately will never go down. Last but not least, we also have programmability. So this is going to be, when we think about those north-south APIs, the importance of those to be able to tell the network, from an agent into the network or from a device to the network, I need a network slice, I need a special QoS for this type of application. This is going to be on demand, and it's probably about 5 years away where that's going to be at scale, and many enterprise companies will be using it. But also, we want that to go down market, because once folks realize the power of AI, this is not just going to be an enterprise play, it's going to be just table stakes for business.
And we were catching up behind when we were waiting to come on. We started talking about APIs. We're always talking about APIs. And shifting to the east-west direction, you had a statistic around the use of Mplify APIs for your ordering. Maybe you can throw that one at us.
Oh, absolutely. So we've, obviously, Kevin and I have known each other a while. In my previous role, even working with strategy, and our IT lead, Scott Melanson's here. But about 8 years ago, we started building a new platform that was going to be very easy for all of our customers to really transact. Now, the biggest players invest, and very important for us to be on an API to API level. But we're now seeing 80% of all of our carrier Ethernet orders that come in and that we also transact with that are all over the Mplify API. So a lot of investment to get here, a lot of time spent with this community, but we need to make sure we're all investing in these so we continue to have these on a global basis. The less friction that are in all of our processes, the better, the more efficient, the way we're actually going to be able to scale this AI-connected ecosystem as fast as we can and as profitably as we can.
And I think about, maybe it's just me, but when I think about NAS, I kind of intuitively think retail. A retail provider offering, obviously NAS-like characteristics and capabilities to the enterprise customer. And I realize it goes beyond to traditional enterprises, but are you seeing wholesale demand increasingly be driven by NAS retail offerings, both with Verizon as your retail partner and your other channels?
So we're seeing it a lot from our retail direct side, and I think all large companies probably have this same dynamic where not only we have wholesale, but we have the affiliate operations. So we see a lot of the NAS requests coming in, and by the way, they come in as different circuit segments, so we see them as widgets coming through the factory generally. But when we go down market, and our mid-market resellers, they're starting to understand the power of NAS, and we always talk to our partners about the power of private 5G networks, the power of IoT, and connecting all these different managed service components so that they can ultimately push NAS out to their end users. I think the market has a little bit further to go for folks like Verizon and other big carriers to make that available as a collective or as a combined offer, but I think the industry has to get there, or else some of those resellers and the mid-market players are going to fall behind.
But when you architected, and shout out to Scott Melanson at the back there, who's your genius behind this stuff, but you very strategically architected your platform, your resale, exchange platform. Forget the name of it. It's called
Verizon Partner Solutions Exchange.
Exchange. Okay, at least I got the exchange part right anyway. But and we're seeing this happening as a trend in the industry where using standard-based APIs behind the platform into the OSS, BSS systems is strategic in terms of being able to then expose those APIs to those partners that want them directly versus using your portal, right? That was a deliberate thing?
It's table stakes. It is absolutely table stakes, because what we're looking at is how do you actually connect into the back of CRM platforms that our partners use so that they can frictionlessly put that in. And when I think of some of the use cases for a medium business that many of our resellers and partners need, I mean, you're going to need DIA connectivity. You might want fixed wireless access. You're going to want some kind of backup, some kind of security offer, and you want the ability to scale that up and down. So having that connected API ecosystem is table stakes in today's game.
And just coming back to the sort of the bandwidth demands driven by AI, you've heard us talk about our Carrier Ethernet, this new announcement of Carrier Ethernet for AI certification. We're looking at, the different use cases that we expect to drive that. Do you see DC interconnect as being, is that one of your prominent bandwidth driving use cases, number one, and number two? Do you see Carrier Ethernet coexisting with waves, growing with waves, diminishing, waves growing? Any kind of trends you're starting to see there?
Yeah,
These weren't questions. I prepped you. You know, I'm throwing you on the spot here, right? Hope you have the stats.
You guys are great with that, I know.
Well, I'm not very good at preparing.
No, the data center connectivity is absolutely the number one driver. We are seeing terabits of demand between the most common data centers. You know, having assets pre-positioned so that you can order on an API basis is critically important. When we look at our different asset classes right now, we're an amalgamation of about 3 or 4 different large companies when you think back to our DNA and our heritage. So combining all those systems into one single inventory platform and then putting capabilities on top so that the OSS and BSS could talk together in a north-south way, it is critically important that we get there in the next 18 months. We have a little bit of a ways to go. We also have a pending acquisition that we expect to close here in the first quarter, so looking forward to also folding those assets in as well. But a lot of architectural design behind how do you ultimately pull this off so it's a seamless process for the customer. It is literally API calls for availability, for quoting, and then for ordering, so that this could be installed near real time in the future. Right now, we're doing them in anywhere from 30 to 60 days, but we need to get to a place, because the market leaders are doing it in 10 days as an outside case, and sometimes even in 24 hours when all the stars line up for them. So it is critically important we continue to invest in these areas.
And so you've got a domestic, you know, view of things, obviously a huge market here in the U.S., and then you've got the international side. And I think sometimes, you know, we watch what's happening here and we think it's, you know, sometimes it just doesn't apply to other parts of the world. So you think about the speeds between data centers and you look at geographies like the Philippines and Indonesia, where massive amounts of subsea cable going between their islands and their cities and so on, where these perhaps wave type traffics just aren't going to fly initially, right? So do you see major differences from a wholesale perspective in terms of what you're selling for international versus the US?
So generally the way our business sets up, just based upon how our assets are, let's call it 80-20, 80% domestic, 20% international. When I look at the growth on a percentage and an absolute unit count perspective, there's a lot more demand, a lot more winning on the international side right now. So think about internationally located, headquartered companies landing on cable landing stations here in the US and then needing US connectivity. So we are seeing a ton and a flood of demand, really mostly landing on the West Coast right now. We're continuing to lead into those partners right now. They are not as mature, I would say, with some of the API connectivity, so we're working closely with them to understand where do they ultimately want to take their IT stacks of the future, and how do we connect with them more efficiently if we're going to continue to be very close partners.
And again, unscripted question here. So I have a long history working with the ITW Global Leaders Forum, GLF. Jeff has been on the GLF for some time, and we were at the GLF board meeting a few weeks ago. And maybe tell us a little bit about, the GLF is obviously solidly behind the Mplify APIs and that whole dialogue there. Maybe you can kind of tell us what's driving GLF is an alliance of very senior wholesale executives trying to automate wholesale ecosystems, essentially. Maybe just tell us what you're hearing from that community. That's relevant here, of course.
Well, actually, it's more of the exact same message. The AI revolution that's happening right now, unless partners are connected in this ecosystem and we all know our role and where we're playing and how we're winning, the whole ecosystem is not going to function. And what we find is when hyperscalers can't get what they want or are able to actually fulfill their requirements with partners, they will go and do things themselves. So I think it's incredibly important that we always think through our strategy, and it's always an evolving strategy. We use the framework of where to play and how to win. We understand where our assets are and our capabilities reside, and ultimately how do you bring them to market to ultimately get the best return on investment you can get. When we were just at the GLF, it was great to hear different speakers from across the globe, some industry analysts, some finance analysts who actually cover the industry, and they talk about, we all can't be everything to everybody. We have to pick our lane, be very good at it, and then ultimately try and scale and partner with each other so that we can really connect this whole global ecosystem and really hit every area of the OSI stack. I mean, it is incredibly important that when I think of the Verizon strategy and really how it's changed over time, about 6-7 years ago, We went out and we launched the biggest construction project here in the United States. We fibered the top 69 US markets with dense fiber in order to have as many of our macro cell sites on net. We think that's a competitive advantage when you put your cell sites and you manage them and you set them up in a way with survivability and power backup that really gives your customers the best experience. The second use case for that, though, was to go and also connect those to all the enterprise lit buildings and really push out DIA, Ethernet, and all the different wave services. So we were really, with that strategic case, we've been very successful in putting many of those macro sites on net. It just so happens that the industry is now looking for distributed dense fiber networks in these metros. So this is a great corner case for how do we ultimately take the investments that we've put out there and monetize them in the AI ecosystem. So when I think about our where to play, how to win, generally it's not in the ultra long haul data center to data center connectivity. It is in the metro for dark fiber. It is in the metro for wave connectivity, and all the way from the metro to the edge for anybody who's looking for access to an end user prem. Dan just did a great example of showing all the use cases that are coming to life here in the healthcare space. Now, you can't do that unless you have a completely connected ecosystem with not only wireline, but wireless. So this is a little bit about, the GLF strategy, how we think the AI ecosystem is projected and thought about across the globe, but how we all have to individually think about what are we good at, what do we want to invest in, where do we want to build capabilities, and then how do we ultimately deliver the AI promise for our customers.
And thinking about automation and thinking about layer one services, so typically we've seen automation be more justifiable with the higher volumes of services, hence layer 3 and 2 and so on. But with the growth in layer one, like are you automating? Are you delivering waves as a service today, or because that's typically somewhat manual? Is it you delivering in an automated way, or is that a directional thing for you?
It is directional. It's probably 18 months out right now. I mean, we're able to deliver waves in our VZT footprint. This is like our access layer, if you will. We're able to do that in about 20 days pretty effectively. That's on the Verizon Partner Exchange. We can put that in. So that's probably the most sophisticated side of that. But when I think about data center to data center, some of our Verizon business type assets, those are roadmap items. We understand we have to get there, and really the leading charge there is the wholesale community, because we just have so many different points of interconnection that we have to work with our partners, because we're seeing that demand come in each and every day.
Cool. And I think the issue of you mentioned the GLF and focus and so on. I think Devika, we've had that discussion yesterday with the board meeting. Mplify could be doing a lot of different things. What are the most important things we can be doing for your business over the next couple of years?
I love sitting down at forums like this because we continue to talk about it. And you always visit us at the GLF. So when we think about the GLF, it's a collection of some of the biggest companies of the world, the biggest carriers, and we talk about the importance of partnering. Having a double-click session like this allows us to spend a little bit more time to understand what are the needs at a product level, how does that translate into IT capabilities, and then ultimately, how do we just keep friction out of our processes? I mean, the days of paper orders are 30 years in our rearview mirror. We don't have the ability or the people in seats to be able to transact that way. So unless you continue to beat this drum, we're going to continue to fall behind. So, we appreciate all the efforts here of everybody here from the Mplify team, and, really appreciate being invited to the GNE event.
Well, it's been great to get your perspective on from a wholesale angle. Obviously, being one of the largest providers in the world, it's good to hear that we're playing a role, and we'll continue to do that. So thanks for the time today, and I think it's break time now, and hope you enjoy the rest of the morning. Thanks, Jeff.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Good stuff.
Appreciate it. Thank you.